to believe it when you cannot see it. You gotta be possessed with the dream. Yeah.
Yo, what's up, guys? Straight from the chest. This is Sunday edition. I'm your host, Justin Groth. Thank you for tuning in. For those of you who are checking out my live, thank you for tuning into that stream as well. I appreciate you guys more than you know. I appreciate your listening ears. I appreciate you receiving me, and I also appreciate the ones that don't receive me as well. Guys, if this is your first time tuning in, this is a self-help personal development podcast. I do my best to bring you the most vulnerable content that I can with regards to my life, my experiences, and things that are just on my heart, really. That's just what it boils down to. What's on my heart is what I choose to deliver. And I'm a God-fearing man. For those of you who are not, maybe this is not the right podcast for you. I completely understand. But for those of you who are, I believe you're in for a treat, because there are times where we don't feel like we're adequate, and we don't feel like we know where we're going. And it's my mission with this podcast to try to deliver more of to deliver more of an avenue with regards to your purpose and identifying what that might be. And hopefully you gain some value from it. So, I was just thinking about this the other day. I had the chance to go to a little comedy show at the Shumash, and it was one of my favorite comedians. His name's Chris D'Elia, and he was playing at Shumash probably, I think like 2 months ago maybe. But there was something that reminded me of something or other, and it reminded me of that particular comedy show, going to it, and it was so I feel like I'm gonna jump ahead. I shouldn't jump ahead right now. I'm just gonna stay the course. So when I was at the show, he comes in on stage. It's kind of like a surreal, well, not surreal, but it's a cool experience to say the least, because it's someone that I've watched on TV countless times, numerous specials that he has, and I just dig this guy. He's just super funny because he's so witty, but also so very genuine and authentic. And I feel like that's some of the thing missing with all of us, is a lot of genuity and authenticity, and what comes along with that is vulnerability. So I'm not going to get into that yet. Let me just explain the story first. So when he comes out on stage, he of course clearly has material that he's using for the entire show, right? That's his gig. But in the beginning, he chose to talk about what it was like coming to Shumash, and how he entered in, and just the metaphors that he used, and the pictures, and the way he illustrated it, and he correlated it to coming like if he was going into Jurassic Park. I mean, I'm butchering it clearly because I'm not Chris, but the way he said it, was just super funny. And the way he was, like, he said he was driving in, and it was so this greenery around him, and I felt like he was in the opening scene of Jurassic Park when they're flying in that helicopter and they're going through the mountains. Anyways, I know I'm butchering it. I'm gonna stop now because But anyways, it was just super funny. Anyways, it got me thinking. Whenever I relate to a comedian, it's always because they're sharing some form of vulnerability with their own personal experiences, or how certain things relate to their lives. And clearly they exaggerate a little bit in the story to make it more funny, but sometimes not. And sometimes they're genuine stories, and you can tell they're genuine if you've been listening to a comedian for a long period of time, and you can just understand how they are in their comedy skits, and you can assume or ascertain that they're probably that way in real life because of the way that they are on stage. And I know that there are people that have, certain levels of humility. They present a certain character on stage, and they're not that way off stage. But I've done a little background on Chris, listened to his podcast. He's pretty much that way. And, there are things that he probably exaggerates, but there are probably 80% of the stuff that he says, this is what is in his real life and what he's gone through. And if you ever noticed, because we're human beings, we relate to other people's problems because we have the same problems, so to speak, sometimes. We have the same issues, or sometimes we're totally off on a different trajectory with our issues, but they're somewhat relating. And it's like we enter into this invisible agreement with the person when they share an experience that they've had, and that it's something that we can relate to, we can bind to, and we just automatically now have this unspoken like covenant with this person, like, you get me, dude, like I get you, you get me, and that's what draws me to you. That's a communication parallel that I think as humans, we all naturally want to gravitate to, but too often we allow more of the pretentious side of us to come out on display rather than the vulnerable side. And because of that, we lose people in translation. We don't connect as well as we could with people. And we miss out on a lot of potential awesome relationships with certain people, individuals, because we are too afraid of showcasing vulnerability. We're too afraid of being who we are and displaying who we are. And in everything from the way we process information, what we say, blah, blah, blah. And now in this day and age, it's really easy to offend people. People are just so offended so easily at the drop of a hat. And I mean, for those people, you can't really do anything about it. They're going to be offended no matter what. Let me fix this. They're going to be offended no matter what. But you can essentially continue to be yourself and communicate you'll end up communicating with the right people, I believe. I believe that if you are your vulnerable self and you're displaying a level of humility to some degree, I believe that you're going to attract the right people. And I believe that just like this podcast, the people that don't like what I hear or don't like what I have to say, they stop listening. That's fine. It's a natural filter, right? I'm filtering in the people that see value in my word, and I'm filtering the people that don't see value in it out. And I'm not doing anything but producing. I'm not doing anything but being me. I'm not doing anything else but living up to the calling in me, the brewing in me, to continue to produce this type of material, because that's the only reason why I do it. And like comedians, when you watch a comedian, what's the first thing that draws you into them? They have some sort of communicative similarity with you in the maybe that doesn't make sense. They have some sort of similarity in the way that they think, or the way that they, or maybe they say what you think and they bring that out, and that makes you more receptive to what they're saying. But if you ever notice, you either like or hate a comedian right away. You can watch the first 5 minutes of their bit and be zoned in, or just be like, nah, I'm going to change the channel at this point. Because the way a comedian is, they're pretty consistent with that. They're pretty consistent with their character and with and even if it is an act, they're pretty consistent with that act. They're not going to change much. I mean, think about that the next time you watch comedians. Sure, they might change trivially over years, but they're genuinely going to be that kind of person all throughout. And that's what gravitates me towards certain comedians and people in general. It's what that person is delivering in terms of vulnerability that I can relate to, that establishes this unspoken covenant with me and that person. They don't know it, right? But I know, that's how I feel like I can connect with somebody, is when I know that person is going through some of the same stuff that I'm going through. But here's the problem with that. Most people don't want to live up to their weaknesses because they're too busy guarding the clout. They're too busy guarding the bravado, the pretentiousness behind them. And they want to quite possibly display a certain level of bravery within their connective ways with you, or within the way that they connect with you, or they connect with anybody, or the way that they act or anything. But it's never the same as becoming genuinely humble, genuinely vulnerable. Those are two different concepts. You becoming vulnerable and humble, more so vulnerable. Let's just take the word vulnerable. You becoming more vulnerable, malleable in regards to the way that you feel and expressing that. And I'm not talking about being emotional, or being, if you're a man, having an emotional, withering type of I can't think of the word right now, but I'm not saying like you're supposed to be in your feelings, bro. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you showcasing what it means to fail if you failed in the past, what it means to go through a breakup, what it means to go through these hard experiences in your life, and giving life to those experiences and expressing them and not suppressing them. That takes bravery, because the way you're going to be perceived could be weak, absent-minded, a host of other things. But what it all boils down to is that when people hear you say the things that they think and act the way that they would want to act, that is giving them assurance that it's okay to be that way. And you're acting out in a similar and somewhat of a brave state, because it's not easy to showcase weaknesses. It's hard to do that. It's so easy to go off of a pretentious state of mind, or have a pompous attitude and live in your clout. If you go on Instagram, that's all it is. That's all it is. Many people are not showcasing the weaknesses of them. Many people are not giving the vulnerability aspect to their fans or to the audience, because that may make them think, and this is me as well, it may make people that are in their audience or their listeners think that, well, they don't have it all together. And I'm here to tell you, none of us have it all together. This is a journey for all of us. No matter if you're 13 or you're 63, this is a journey. And this is always going to be a journey until your dying day. Because if you're still on this earth, that still means God's got more to do with you. That means there's more of a journey ahead. That means there's more challenges associated with that journey. There's more pinnacle associated with your life. But to reach that pinnacle, you got to jump the hurdles and you got to take the stabs. There's so much more involved. There's so much involved in someone's life. It doesn't stop. If you're still living, you're still going through the journey. I'm sorry to tell you. But listen, there's good news in that. Because that means that God still has value on your life. And God still wants to do something in your life. No matter if you're 13 or 63. There's still something he's doing. If you're still alive. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. It's very easy to mask your weaknesses. It's very easy to post something of inspiration when you're having a negative day. And we're all negative. You may have to want to go against that grain. You can go against that grain. But you're only doing yourself an injustice because if you're human like I am, I know you have negative days, times, even strings of time where you're negative for a week or two. Or maybe some for months. But if you continue to allow only the strengths to be shown, you're never going to relish in the greatness that is weakness. There's greatness and relaxation in weakness. Now, I don't mean weakness, again, for you men listening, I don't mean weakness like, holding back your tears, don't want to showcase your weakness. I don't mean being all in your feelings. I don't mean not being still being a man, because I do believe, me personally, I believe that to be a man is to be a tender aggressor. And I believe that to be a man, there are times you must be stoic, and there are times that you must be tender, and you must be gentle, like Jesus. But I also believe that you shouldn't be, as a man, I don't believe you should be soft. And to me, that means not standing your ground, not being a leader, giving into less than formalities that are around you. I do believe that you should be empathetic, but I think it's also situational. There's times and places where you should be stoic and times and places where you should be empathetic. And I believe, again, it's just situational. It just depends on the situation and what's occurring in your life or what's happening. There's a part in the Bible where I think it's the Pharisees, they bring, don't quote me on that. I don't know the Bible too well, but there is a part of the Bible where, I don't know, for the group of people that brought this woman to Jesus that just committed adultery. She was actually caught in the act. And Jesus was, I think, kneeling down at the time. And she says, and they say to her, so, Master, what do they call him? Jesus. They say, Jesus, we just found this woman in the act committing adultery. What do you say to her? And it's almost like they knew what he was going to do. They expected Jesus to just prop up and be like, oh, then you're blah, 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 and just cast out on the woman because she was found committing adultery in the act. And obviously, that's a busting of one of the commandments, right? But Jesus still just remained in his stance, and he didn't even bat an eye in the beginning. And I think they even asked him a second time because he didn't, I want to say he didn't answer this the first time, but I could be wrong on that. And then he said, very, very direct but soft. He said, I'm paraphrasing here. Those of you who do not have sin, feel free to cast the first stone. So clearly, none of them were without sin, so none of them could cast stones. But the way he did it, the way he said it, his position, his posture was very stoic, but he was also empathetic. That's how I see that. He was very grounded, but he was also empathetic. And to be stoic is to be to not be in a relation of empathy. To be hardened, to be unempathetic, etc., right? But I believe that he still remained in that stoic stance, but also he was empathetic. And I think that's the perfect example of what being a man and a leader is. Not casting blame, leading with intent, and not being so emotional. And that's something that I have to work on too, because I can get angry quick. And I can get in my emotions and intense quick. And when I say in my emotions, I don't mean crying and whatnot. I mean, I can get intense. Like I yell on these podcasts, I can do that tenfold. That's like a level 3 for me, guys. I'm at like a level 3 or 4. And I don't mean that boastfully. I just mean that authentically expressing to you, that's the level that I can be at. I can be much higher. And so that's something that I, in my own personal walk, am trying to control, because I need to process things before I speak sometimes. And again, showcasing your weaknesses, showcasing your blame, showcasing where you were wrong, admitting to those areas, that takes bravery. That's a sense of bravery. For me to come out in this podcast or this extension of wherever this podcast is going to, wherever it's extending to, and me speaking about Jesus in this day and age, that's something that most would refrain from because they don't want to be viewed at a certain way. I don't care the way I'm viewed. I know who I am, and I know what God's made me to be, and I know what's convicted me, and I know what's changed me. I know that I'm a changed person from not having sex, and I've told you this before. I've told you, I've expressed to you about abstinence and refraining from watching porn and all that, just horrible stuff that, or I should say flavorless stuff and the garbage that's in the world. I have become more clear. I have become more intent on where I feel like I'm going. I've been able to be more I would say, I can hear God more. I'm much more of a listener now than just a doer. And that's important for me to be a listener. It's important for me to be a listener and to be able to hone in on where he wants me. Because this is not about me as much as it's about what my imprint is going to be after I'm gone and during the time that I'm in my purpose. And it's the same for you. If you're not calling to the purpose that he has in store for you, then you're not just living into what you're supposed to be and what you were bred to be, but many others are going to miss out on being their best around you, because it may have been through you that they have reached their purpose. And because you didn't pick up your crown, and because you were not disciplined, and because you did not derail from the enemy and derail from what hedonisms you were trying to manifest at the time, you missed out on not only your calling, you missed out on saving a lot of other people through the name of Jesus. And that is the true failure. It's not all about you, bro. It's about others that will be directly influenced by your walk, and therefore come into their greatness as a result. But if you don't make it, many others won't make it. So don't think of it as just you. Yes, you are definitely going to be stimulated and be progressed into your purpose by way of seeking God and seeking alignment with him and cutting off the negative luggage that you have. But it's not just about you, it's about all of those who will be affected through your word that's been given to you through Jesus, that Jesus is using. He's using you. You're just another portal. You're just another vehicle, but you're not just that. God chose you, so please don't let it go to waste. It's your job to make sure that what you're advocating and where you're going is with integrity, ingenuity, and vulnerability, because that's going to have the best, that's going to have the most proficient language. That's going to be the most proficient language to anybody and everybody that encounters you, because that's going to lead them to becoming their best. But if you don't do your job, many others will fail as well. So don't think of it from just a concept of you, but everybody else too, that you're going to affect and bring to Jesus and have them, their lives saved, their souls saved. That's the end game. So I encourage you to go through the disciplines right now, to align yourself with where Jesus wants you right now, to be brave, to have the bravery speak louder than your bravado. Because in the end, bravado dies. In the end, you can't take all of your highlight clips and pictures with you to heaven. None of that matters. What matters is how you affect people and how you lead people. And the way to do that, the best way to extend that language is to relate to them. And how you relate is be vulnerable and live in humility sometimes. You can't be loud if you don't showcase your human side. You just can't. You can't have the biggest voice if you can't relate. Relate. And honestly, be strong in becoming brave with your vulnerability, because that's what's going to make the most impact. That's what's going to be the biggest speaker. I appreciate you guys.